I'm going to show you three things today. First, we'll see how Bromium works from a user's point of view. Then we'll see how Bromium works from a SOC operator's point of view. Then we'll see how Bromium works from an advanced malware analyst point of view. From a user's point of view, your security software should typically be invisible. The user may not realize that each website and document is being rendered inside of a micro VM. If we pull up Bromium's dashboard, open the live view, now we can see the various micro VMs. We see a Word document in a micro VM number 42. We see Google's website rendered in micro VM 43, and my personal website VDA Labs rendered in micro VM 40. If we close one of these websites, we'll see that the micro VM goes away. Bromium has three products. vSentry is the protection piece enabled by micro VMs. Lava is the detection piece inside micro VMs, and BEM, Bromium Endpoint Monitor, is a detection piece for the host. If Lava detected malicious behavior inside a micro VM, that data is sent to the BEC, the Bromium Enterprise Controller, which is the enterprise component a Security Operations Center analyst is likely to interface with. Let's go see the BEC. Here we see the Bromium Enterprise Controller. We simply log into our web app and we have various permissions that can be configured. And we get a lot of different information that the SOC analyst can achieve. So the typical workflow is an alert comes in maybe to the SOC analyst SIM tool, and the SIM tool says there's a Lava alert or a BEM alert, and then from there the analyst can go on that, switch over to the BEC interface, and quickly examine the alert to see if it's something that needs immediate attention. Here we see overview information, but when we're searching for a specific alert, we can either look in the recent alerts or by type, or typically what I do, if I'm looking for a particular one, is go and search through all my alerts. In this case, I'm looking for a Word document called Subpoena. This is the one I'm looking for. Now here I am at the start of a specific threat. We can tell that it was a document called Subpoena, might have been a website or some other resource. We can see the user involved, which could be interesting if perhaps it was a VIP like your CEO or something. We get some geo information. If you're located in the US, I typically don't want to see my Word documents going to Eastern Europe. Now let me expand the threat behavior graph. This is the traditional BEC view of a Lava event, and Bromium has newer views coming as well. You can uncheck each category if you want to, for example, just look at, in this case, a long sleep, if, say, this attack were trying to bypass something like a FireEye. But what's typically most interesting are the dropped and executed events. If we see a particular file downloaded and executed, that's unusual for a Word document. Let's take this hash and check it in VirusTotal. I'll paste the hash here, and we see that 36 of the 57 AV vendors recognize this executable as malicious. That's a very good indicator that it is in fact malicious. I'd quickly go through any additional comments or details or descriptions that might tell me exactly what this malware is. Sometimes AV vendors are very good at getting the name right, particularly when it comes to some of the most prevalent threats like CryptoWall, Tesla, some of the ransomware that's out there right now. But in many other cases, the names are not very good or accurate. So we see that from a high level, a SOC analyst is able to figure out the resource, the user, the geo, any malware involved that's known, DNS request, various high-level things, and oftentimes that's enough. The analyst might be done, maybe recognizes as something they've seen before, and can take the action that's appropriate, whether it's hunting or closing the case or looking for similar hashes across the network. There's a variety of actions that could and should be taken when an alert is found, and much of that can be driven from a high level. But in other cases, we need to dig deeper. There's a middle view and a deep view. Let's switch back to our mock victim and our analysis computer where we can dig deeper. For this example, we had been emailed a Word document called Subpoena. We see that the orange Bromium marker on the document indicates that when the document opens, it will be placed into a micro VM. The idea of trusted documents which do not render in a micro VM versus untrusted documents which do render in a micro VM is important in the Bromium world. And when this document opened, some malware tried to run. And when the document was closed, the alert about that malware was sent to our BEC, which we were just examining. But now let's examine the files that are created for a Bromium alert further. First, there's an XML file, which is used to populate the BEC GUI. Second, there's a deeper Procmon-style database file created, which houses many of the events that took place inside the micro VM. Finally, there's a malware manifest that includes the actual files that were touched and created and dropped, like the actual malware executable, DLL, scripts, etc. There's no need to manually view the XML file, although you can, since it's seen in the BEC. What we'll do is run a Python script against the database file that chops out the noise and leaves us with just the interesting bits. We'll run Python, analyze dvtspy, the file name, and pipe it to an output file. And actually, Bromium has some more interesting tools coming that do all this automatically on their end. But I wanted to provide a set of scripts, though they may be slightly outdated, which learners can use even if you're not a Bromium customer. When we look inside the output from that script, we see all the evidence we need to determine whether or not the alert was a true or false positive. In this case, we see Word running a command to start a batch script. That's pretty unusual. And then we see an executable being launched, another executable. Then we see that original executable being deleted, which is typical of malware covering its tracks. And there may be more high severity events as well. But we've seen everything we need to see to determine that this is in fact a real attack. Now, it didn't harm the Bromium customer because again the attacks all happen in this micro VM world, so nothing can actually affect the host. But what's great about this information is the threat intelligence can still be used to figure out what would have happened to your unprotected machines, so that further mitigations can be engaged by your security controls. Other categories of information in the output file include file system activity, in which we see more evidence of WinWord running a VB script, batch script, executable. And if you've been following the latest trends, we know that macro malware is once again hot. For process invocations, again we see even more detail about the flow of one process that starts another. And we can look through here and pull out specific indicators of compromise. For example, this malware pings a certain IP address for whatever reason. We could block that, look for that, search for that, indicate on that, even at the network layer, though this is an endpoint tool. API hooks let us know about interesting functions that are called. For example, ransomware often calls crypto APIs. Finally, DNS is quite interesting. Why is my document calling to a Russian website? It shouldn't be, and I know this is malware. We can use those websites as IOCs as well. So analyzing the micro VM trace information is perhaps the most effective way to quickly determine relevant information about an attack. However, there's even a deeper layer yet we can go. There's another Python script that can be used to extract the files from the malware manifest into a folder. Once inside, we can examine the executables deeply with something like IDA Pro, we can look at the scripts, and so much more. Being situationally aware of the threat type is important. For example, with a browser attack, we expect to find HTML, jar, flash, for example. But with a document attack, we wouldn't expect to see those files. But what we would expect is malicious macros inside the document. If we run this OLE dump Python tool, we can extract the macros one at a time. For example, the contents in position 8 are as follows. I've already dumped those to a file, and we can look at each one. The first two are benign, but when we look at the third, we can tell right off the bat that this is in fact the malicious macro that launched the attack.